As far as we know, the only man who routinely wears his kirpan into the House of Commons is Liberal MP Navdeep Bains, and he joins us now from Toronto, which is not far from his Mississauga-Brampton constituency. Sir, for those Canadians who don't know what this is all about, could you give us a quick 101 on the kirpan? What is it, and what does it mean to you through your faith?
Sure. It's an article of faith, and basically what it represents is an external manifestation of one's commitment. And basically the kirpan represents a fight against injustice and inequality. And this whole issue actually emerged when members from the Sikh community were going to the Quebec legislature to actually defend someone else's religious freedoms, and they themselves were denied. So that's the ironic part in all of this. But basically it's an outward expression of one's commitment to be a better person.
Do you actually do anything with it?
No, it's basically designed to remind me that I have certain obligations to myself and to society and to look out for others. It really is a symbolic and internal way of focusing myself and holding myself accountable in a public way. But there's no particular sets of rules around it.
Now, sir, there's a number of Sikhs in the House. I think 4 other men besides yourself. You are the only one that wears the kirpan?
I don't know for sure. I suspect there might be someone else. But again, that's something that I guess you would need to look into. But I'm not sure 100% who else wears a kirpan.
Now, your leader, Michael Ignatieff, came out in support of the ceremonial dagger not being seen as a weapon, which is also supporting the Supreme Court decision. And I'm sure
correct.
This is a big argument for why you should be allowed to wear it.
Well, I mean, these issues around security, the way Mr. Deceppe has raised it, first of all, I'm baffled that he would raise this issue because I've worn the kirpan since I was elected in 2004, and I've worn it to the Supreme Court, I've worn it to the U.S. Congress, and I've never had an issue. And it's ironic that I sit in the House of Commons and I'm situated right beside bloc members, and we talk about these issues all the time. Many of them are aware that I wear a kirpan, and many of them even seen the kirpan, and they've never raised this as a security issue before. Why now? And so that's the problematic part. And secondly, to his issue about the kirpan being a weapon, the Supreme Court very clearly in 2006 unanimously indicated that it's not a weapon, it's an article of faith. So I think we need to move beyond that debate now and saying, okay, look, it's not a weapon. Because, for example, in the House of Commons, if somebody has a pen in their hand and their intent is to injure someone, that too could be deemed a weapon. Or a stapler, or some other object. So it's how you view it, and it's clearly been determined in our constitutional democracy that a kirpan is not a weapon, and therefore we need to now move beyond that and have a calm, rational discussion. And if there's legitimate concerns around security, Mr. Deceppe had 6 years. He's known me. He's known that I've worn a kirpan for 6 years in the House of Commons. Why now? And it's unfortunate that he's politicizing this issue, which is a very sensitive debate, by pitting one Canadian against another.
So what's your sense then of what he is up to? What's the Bloc doing here?
It's fear-mongering. It's unfortunate, but it's the politics at its worst. It's planting the seeds of mistrust and confusion amongst Canadians so that you muddy the water so people don't understand. And that's why I'm doing my best to try to educate people and say, okay, let's calm down. If there's legitimate concerns, let us know, because I went to the Newfoundland Labrador legislature this Monday, and there was no issues there. And so why is it an issue in Quebec? And if there's legitimate concerns around security, let's deal with that. But to say to ban it outright absolutely is inconsistent with the Supreme Court ruling. It's inconsistent with what the court says about the kirpan not being a weapon. So it's fear-mongering at its worst, and it's really unfortunate to see the Bloc. I expect better from elected officials, and particularly people that are knowledgeable about the issue. So it is really disheartening to see this, and hopefully going forward they will recognize this mistake and retract their comments.
I've heard this suggestion made today that perhaps what the Bloc is trying to do is embarrass the government, because while the government has certainly had no issue with you wearing the kirpan in the House, if they have to make a decision about it and they rule in your favor, they rule in favor of the kirpan, sorry, perhaps they are going to in some way offend their base, or perhaps offend whatever chance of support they might have in Quebec.
Well, that's not what Canada is about. You should not try to isolate one minority to score political points. And it's unfortunate if that's the politics they're pursuing. If that is their agenda, then it's extremely unfortunate, because we're all minorities in this country. And I very much believe in the Charter rights and freedom, and I very much believe in freedom of religion. And in our constitutional democracy, all the rules that are created are equal for everyone, and they must be consistent with our Constitution. And for the Bloc to try to circumvent that by making these outrageous remarks and by targeting one particular community is not the way we operate here in Canada, and it's really un-Canadian in my opinion.
What would you do, sir, if you were asked to make a reasonable accommodation and remove the Kirpan before you came into the House of Commons?
Well, I hope, and I'm confident that that's not the case, because we have, again, the Supreme Court ruling to justify that a Kirpan is not a weapon, and so that we won't have to go down there. But I even think the term accommodation, I personally think, is a veil, and no pun intended, for ignorance and some sort of underlying, targeting of particular communities. I don't accommodate my neighbors. I've been born and raised in this country. And if I have a difference of opinion, or if I see that someone has a different practice, I try to understand that issue. We deal with it in a respectful way. We celebrate each other's differences. We don't try to put one another down. We don't try to, promote ignorance. We try to understand the issue. And I think that's what needs to be done in this particular case. We need to cool things down a bit, cool down the rhetoric, avoid the offensive language that some of the Bloc members, and particularly the Parti Québécois members, have used, and say, hold on. Please don't go down that path. It's not good for our country. It's not good to pit one Canadian against another. And let's deal with this. And whatever your concerns are, why are they so unique to the Quebec legislature, or particularly the House of Commons? Why haven't you raised this issue in the past? Take a look at the Supreme Court ruling and understand that Kirpan is not a weapon.
Liberal MP Navdeep Bains. Nice to see you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me on.